Now once again I want to show you a little video about how to dye your kayak. It's all about preparations, and I want to give you some tips and advice. They're probably also in the original video about using Kayakskin, but now I just want to go through it once again and I'll show you the whole process. It's all about preparation. So first I tied ropes to the end of the kayak so I can fast and easily just hang it in place to dry. I have covered the workbenches with some packing tape, and most importantly I have kept the kayak clean. So while I was skinning the kayak, I would be very careful not to have any stains on it, not to have any oil or any dirt on it, and if I would have it, I would clean it with water. So that it should be pretty close to perfect now. One tip that I did not mention in the first original movie was that a little bit of water in the surface is a good thing, because it will help to not use too much of the color, and it's easier to get a more even result. But as you can see from my watering here, I'm not making it soaking wet, I'm just making it damp. Even though you see that the surface is not completely wet, then the water will get into all the fabric. So just one good spray here. One good spray and it will be good to go in a couple of minutes. I got all my tools arranged here, so I don't need to run around and find stuff when I'm working. I have a real white brush here and it's all clean. I have some of my dye. Again, it's water-based stuff. I leave the brush in it so that it will soak up some, and then I take away some, and it's ready to go. I also keep a small brush handy because I may need to use it on details, little details. And if you are curious about the color, then take a look at this. It says Birch 94. So this is one of the varieties that you can buy in my shop or in another shop. As I said, this stuff is water-based, and you need to use maybe half a liter, maybe less, probably less. This is a tiny kayak. It's a Greenland style, like fun play roll kayak, and it's I think I will use only maybe a quarter of a liter or something. So the water is kind of all over now, so I think it's safe to start brushing. And maybe you remember this from last film. I started at one end, take a little bit. I don't go all the way down to over the gunnel, because it will come down there by itself as I work my way to the back end of the kayak. So I take a little bit here, maybe 1/3 of the kayak, move to the other side, take a little more, go back over here. Just watch me closely now. I can speak as I go. Now, not too much stain on the brush, okay? And I start on the keel. This is a very light color, by the way. You can see it hardly colors the skin, and that's what I like about it. It's and now you shouldn't worry too much about not brushing it evenly on, because it will even itself out to some extent, to some degree. And as you can see, I don't go all the way. There's already a lot of water in the fabric here, and if you apply too much, it just runs down and lies on the gunnel. Oops. And at some places there will be more, and it will not be as even as you intended it to be. Now I swap side just to make it even. So the reason I'm doing this experiment right now with this kayak is that I am testing out a new type of varnish. It's not exactly new. I used it years ago on canvas and it worked really well. The problem was the price. It was pretty pricey, but now I got myself a good deal with the company who makes the varnish, and they have given me some good prices, and I may be able to use it again without being bankrupt. It's a German patent, and the cool thing about it is that it's super flexible and it is super strong. But I can get back to that later. But if you're curious, then I can tell you the name of the stuff. It's called Kayakskin. In German, Bootsbesichtigung, that's boat varnish. And it's available a lot of places in Europe. I'm not sure about the US. But see, now I'm as ready as I can be. And now it's time to turn the kayak around and move the workbenches and tie the rope. Easier said than done. I did 2 experiments here. One was rope. It works pretty nicely. The other is a piece of copper wire. And that may be easier. That went well. And now you can, I don't know if you can see this, but you have some color here on the deck already. It has soaked up to the deck from the bottom. And what I do here on the deck is I start out on the seam, because the seam here has 3 layers of fabric, and on the side of the seam there's 1 layer of fabric, which means we will need more color on the seam to make it evenly colored. And I think I just do half the kayak here. Now it's super important that you have actually taken your time and varnished the cockpit before you started doing this. That saves you a lot of trouble when you spill dye over the cockpit and suddenly it's colored. So if you want to avoid that from happening, then you better give it some varnish before you start coloring. So this is very light. I thought I would, just for fun, I would try to paint on it afterwards. Just make a thin line like I used to do on canvas, painted canvas. I would always make like a shear line. And I thought, well, I can try to do that on this one too. That kind of looks nice and tightens up the whole shape a little bit. Now I'm running out of dye, but I think it's just enough. Sometimes people use far too much dye because it gets uneven, and then you apply more, and then you apply even more, and then you end up with quite a lot of layers of dye here. But I find that what happens then is that not all of the color pigment is actually sealed with the varnishing. So every time you have soaked your kayak with water, you will color the water, and that may also color the frame a little bit, which you should better avoid. So I recommend being careful with how much dye you use. So I guess that's it. And now for my tiny brush, I just want the fabric on the inside of the cockpit is still white, which is the original color of the fabric, the Kayakskin. So I just, and some places the color has soaked through, but not all over. So I just go over it so all the skin has the same color. And this is the real cool thing about having a varnished cockpit. You can just take a piece of paper and wipe off the color. So another thing, while I have the paper here, I just wanted to show you, in some spots the color is more visible than others, like this. It's because there's a lot of watery color, and it just sticks to where the skin is close to the wood underneath. So if you want a real perfect result, you could go over and just wipe off a little bit of the excess watery color with a piece of paper like this, or you can leave it. It's kind of cool because it will make the frame more visible, so you can still see the frame is part of the kayak. So I'm not 100% convinced you need to do this, but it's an option, just to dry off a little bit. And also, this always happens. It starts to drip at the deepest point here. It starts dripping. So, and of course, where it all collects down at the bottom, there will be some extra watery color, and it will start dripping. So I just wipe it off, and now I think we're done. I just need to let it dry and just make sure that it's not too much color lying around in any place. Like here, there's a little too much, so I just help speed up the drying a little bit. But I think this will be pretty good. I think it will be nice. Well, I can leave it to dry now. I wash my brushes and clean up the place, and later this afternoon, when it's totally dry, I will give it the first coat of boat varnish.